Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool, Cecily. I love it. So much Sew Virtual Sewing Conference. Welcome to Win TV.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wow. So before we get into the conference, I want to talk a little bit about your life with sewing. How did this all start?
Well, I come from a family of sewers. My mother sewed, my grandmother sewed, my great grandmother sewed. My children, who are 4 and 8, they already know how to sew. So it's just something that's passed on generation to generation. So by the time I was in high school, I was making my friends' prom dresses. College, I went to Howard University. I basically I ran a whole business from my dorm room, and which landed me here in Mount Rainier, Maryland.
Wow. You know, when you think about sewing, anybody that travels, globally, particularly, one of the fun things is that you can go in to a fabric store, see some great fabric. Someone will introduce you to a seamstress who could be male or female. And you can have 5 outfits in 24 hours. It's amazing. And they can make, and they make money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they may not be, what you might buy in a department store per se, but they are quality, still quality items. And so we don't think about the fact that sewing is still a marketable skill.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's a necessary skill, especially what we saw from last year during the pandemic. Like every seamstress was out there making masks, trying to make sure that we stayed safe over the past year. So it's definitely a useful skill in that way.
Wonderful. So tell us about the conference.
So the conference is called So Much Soul. It's SEW, Much Soul. And it's basically, it highlights, I think we have 8 instructors from all over the country. They're all African-American women. And they are amazing, an amazing lineup of sewers. Each one will have either a project. So we're making a tote bag. We have a class on how to make an apron, a shirt. They're both beginner-friendly projects, and we also have some little bit more of advanced projects as well. But the conference is September 11th and 12th. It's all virtual. We have a large response to it. We're expecting at least, hopefully, around 1,000 people. We have about 7,500 people that are already RSVP for the conference. And what you just saw up there is the lineup of instructors that we have that's going to be teaching.
That is so, so exciting. It sounds like so much fun. And when you talk about aprons and other things, it takes me back to the days when I was in Rabot Junior High School here in Washington, D.C. in my home economics class, learning how to sew initially. And I really did love it. I mean, it brings you such real satisfaction sometimes, even if you mess up, which I did a lot of that. But so who are some of the participants or the presenters at your conference?
Well, one is, her name is Mama Fia Nsombonsu. She's teaching the meaning of African print fabrics. We have another instructor, her name is Erica Bunker. She's doing 5 tips to sew like a pro. My partner Tisha is Tisha Thorne. She is teaching 2 projects. One is it's a sewing apron, so it has a bunch of pockets so you can put all your sewing supplies in there, and a thread catcher that you can use so that you don't have all. Oh, actually, I have a sample of the thread catcher right here. So you put all of your. This part sits on the table and it serves as a pin cushion, and then this part is where you put all your threads that you don't want all over the floor.
Right.
So, yeah. So those are a couple of our instructors that are going to be teaching.
Why do you think you have so many people that have registered?
I don't think that the sewing industry has done a good job in terms of catering to Black sewists. And so when people heard about my conference, I made sure that they knew that it was for them. And it was with Black and mostly women, because that's sew here in the United States. That they just found like, okay, this is actually made for us with us in mind. And so with that, I just opened the flood door, as I said, okay, this is for you guys. I did some marketing behind it, and it kind of just caught wind, and a lot of people have been interested in attending.
And I love that quilt behind you. Is that something you produced as well?
Yeah, so this is a quilt made by my partner Tisha. She does both quilting as well as she makes garments as well. But this is one of her pieces in my background.
Wonderful. I always have to tell these personal stories, but I started on a quilt 1,000 years ago when my sons were little, and I was doing it by hand. And I went to someplace and someone said, "You don't have to do that. You can use a sewing machine." I was like, "Isn't that cheating?"
No, it's not cheating, and there are some quilters that like to still sew by hand, and then there's some that may use the machine to sew the pieces together, and then they'll sew the layers together by hand. So they're just different techniques.
Wonderful. So, and you talked about the meaning of African fabrics. Can you give us a hint about what we'll hear during that session?
So people think of African fabrics as like one. I mean, Africa is like it's not a country, right? So the fabrics come from different places and they have different meanings. There are meanings for colors. So if you go to Ghana and you have a red and black fabric, those fabrics are typically worn for funerals. Then you have some fabrics that have symbols on it. They are called different things. My husband's from Burundi, and they call them Gitenge. But if you go over into West Africa, you'll hear Ankara, you'll hear wax prints, you'll hear all these different names. And so the woman that's doing the presentation is going to kind of break down those things. She's like another mother to me, and has a wealth of information in terms of fabrics.
And your little ones that are sewing now, what kinds of things do you have them engaged with? And are there any sessions for, for the
yeah. So we start them young. Let's see, the session that we have coming up in the fall, they start at 8 years old. Those students come in at either on Sundays or I believe on Tuesday evenings, and they have 2-hour sessions where they come in, they learn how to use a sewing machine. They make various projects like skirts and that sort of thing. We also have a entrepreneurship program, and those are the ones that actually make a piece, and then at the end of the semester, they'll sell their garments or whatever projects that they've made. But before, I would also want to show you some of the fabrics that I designed as well. So I started designing fabrics basically at the top of the pandemic, and it was my first time doing so. And so I have this fabric. It's called Black Lives Matter fabric. And I did this fabric right at during the beginning of the Black Lives Matter protest. And it was basically because I knew that with having 2 small children at home, I couldn't be out there protesting with everybody, but I wanted my voice to be heard. And I developed this fabric. It comes in a couple different colors. Nice. And we sold like a lot of this fabric, and people wore it, and it was their way of expressing, their support of this movement. And I just want to show you 2 other ones. One is called Birthright. And let's see. Okay, I think it's backwards, but you could see. Yeah. But this one I developed in response to Amanda Gorton's poem, her inaugural poem at the beginning of the year. I took words that she had said throughout her poem, and I was just inspired by like how moving it was, especially for such a young person. And I developed this word fabric from that.
And Amanda was our former Poet Laureate, National Poet Laureate.
Yeah.
And the other?
I'm sorry?
Was that it? Was that the?
I have just one more. This one is just more fun. We got this. This one's called Hello Queen, and it's got the girl with the Afro puffs on it.
Right. Yeah. Nice. So tell me, just before we go, where are you located? Can people come in for lessons? Just give us, that information. location?
So we're in Mount Rainier, Maryland. We're located at 3711 Rhode Island Avenue. You can reach us. The phone number's there, 301-779-9000. We are open for classes. We have both in-person and virtual classes. We also have a retail space, so if you need fabric like the ones I showed you or just sewing notions, you can come in. We're open 6 days a week. We're just closed on Mondays.
Wonderful. Cecily, thank you so much for what
Thank
you're doing.
you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to try to peek in. Is there any cost to register, or can you just register?
So the conference is free. So you just go to somuchsoulconference.com. That conference is completely free. You do have to pay for your supplies if you want to make the projects. But other than that, if you just want to listen in on the classes, you're welcome to do that as well.
Okay. All right. Sam, thank you.
Thank you.
And keep up the tradition. I love it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you soon.